Fun, not fun, WoW expansions edition. Did Nixxiom make a tier list about like each WoW expansion? Let's have a look.
This is fun / not fun WoW expansions edition. Let's get started, shall we? Vanilla WoW. Fun. It's OG World of Warcraft coming right off the heels of Warcraft 3's epic storyline.
Different.
Vanilla WoW had an amazing RPG feeling right from the beginning. It's a game that's complex, and yet it's still so simple that it doesn't require much of a tutorial to begin playing. Beautiful and fun class identities, hunters with pets, druid shapeshifting, warlock summoning demons. What a fun game to play back in 2004. Compared to other MMOs during its time, nowhere near as punishing either, but still oh so rewarding. And the best part is, nobody knew just how successful this MMO was going to be back
and how many expansions
and
would
man,
come.
Did it take the world by storm. Burning Crusade. Fun. It's vanilla World of Warcraft, guys, but just in space. Blizzard took everything
Literally,
they learned from vanilla and did a major set of updates to the game. Class reworks, talent optimization. You could actually play as a balanced druid or
I love the new
paladin
zones.
and not get laughed at. The addition of Blood Elves to the Horde and Draenei to the Alliance, it brought with it the ability for Horde to have paladins now, and Alliance to have shamans. Now, some would say this was a little bit disappointing, though. It took away from faction identity. What do you guys think? Either way, awesome endgame in Burning Crusade.
You know what my thought was back in the day when I heard about the Draenei and the Blood Elves? I thought something was here wrong. Like, why the heck did the Blood Elves join the Horde and the Draenei the Alliance? I actually thought that it would be the other way around, where the Draenei would go to the Horde and the Blood Elves to the Alliance. Because the Blood Elves, they were high elves, right? And there was some sort of like falling out with the Alliance because of this one general guy that was, yeah, it was kind of racist to them, and he was an evil guy, and he died later on anyway. But yeah, this is kind of weird. I always thought like maybe the Draenei would like kind of like make up with the Orcs, right? Because they had their issues, and yeah, they would then join the Horde and they would make peace, and the Blood Elves go back to the Alliance. I think that would have been more interesting. But then again, like, I think for like game design reasons, like a lot of people asked for a beautiful looking race in the Horde, right? And they were like complaining, we only get those beast races, the undead, and why can't we have like a good looking race? But I think that's what actually made the Horde so unique in vanilla WoW, because you had those not good looking races that look like beasts and zombies and stuff. I think this is actually what got me very interested in the Horde at the beginning. Like, I didn't want to have like all those good looking races. I wanted those badass beast look like, undead look like races. And I would have like preferred if we would have gotten, instead of Blood Elves, like the Nightfall that we got now as a customization option. Like, that would have been such a cool allied, like a new race, right? Or even like as an allied race in the future. Freaking undead elves. I think that's a nice way to introduce something to the Horde. But what do we have now? We have freaking Blood Elves. We have like Nightborn now in the Horde, and it's kind of strange in my opinion. And it's more like for like game design reasons, so there are beautiful looking races inside the Horde. But yeah, I think would have been more cool if the Horde would have races like, I don't know, maybe Draenei, even like the Dark Iron Dwarfs. I feel like they would have been cool in the Horde.
Paladins now, an alliance to have shamans. Now, some would say this was a little bit disappointing, though. It took away from faction identity. What do you guys think? Either way, awesome endgame in Burning Crusade, heroic dungeons, iconic raids like Karazhan arenas. What's not to love?
Yeah.
Zygor. Fun. Quick shout out to this channel's sponsor.
What's that?
It's World of Warcraft's #1 add-on for leveling guides, achievement farming, pet mount collecting.
Yeah, I've
you
seen this
name
one
it.
before.
Check it out down in the description below. Thanks, guys. Wrath of the Lich King. Fun. It's the conclusion to Warcraft.
I think this was the best
signature
expansion.
Storyline, Arcus Menethil. Finally getting to fight against the Lich King himself. What could go wrong? It's a recipe for success. Northrend is absolutely gorgeous to quest in. Probably one of the most enjoyable level up experiences.
And the music there,
WoW
Grizzly
expansion.
Hills
I even
instrumental.
made a video all about this topic. Wrath also introduced WoW's first hero class, the Death Knight. Who doesn't love summoning armies of the undead?
That is
and
cool.
Raids, I will say, yeah, raids were pretty stupid easy at launch. In the expansion, it did bring a huge emphasis on tank and spank mechanics.
Okay, Uldor, yeah,
dungeon,
it's not so
removing
hard,
the need
right?
for things like crowd control, but this did not take away from the fun that people had with Wrath. And lastly, that ending cinematic, man. Rest in peace, Prince of Lordaeron. Rest in peace. Cataclysm. Not fun. Considered WoW's first bad expansion during its day,
But
Cataclysm
why?
had so much to live up to, considering that Wrath of the Lich King was so beloved. It's not really a surprise.
I'm actually of different opinions. So yeah, sure, I slightly liked more Wrath of the Lich King, but I think like Cataclysm wasn't that horrible, and I tell you guys why. First of all, I freaking love like the Worgen and their like starting experience, how you are like being attacked by a sudden ambush of freaking Worgen, right? And then you have like those issues in the city, you have to like secure those villagers or whatever you call them there, and then you get bitten, you transform into a Worgen, then you go to like old zones that you used to quest and level in, then they are different, you suddenly go to freaking Kalimdor, then you have like some areas that are suddenly freaking green and stuff, and I thought this was like a nice way to do some rework of the world, right? And to change like old school areas where we spent eternity leveling and grinding characters on, that they became way too familiar that a new playthrough would not be that fun, right? So it's cool that they did something with the old zones, and I think this is something that's often overlooked by people when they rate the WoW expansions and they say, oh, Cataclysm, it freaking ruined WoW and stuff. But it actually gave you some sort of fresh air into like, it changed the old zones, made some older zones interesting again. If you were like an old school player and you were playing, for example, again, and you wanted to have like a new playthrough and a new character, I thought this was very, very cool. And I think like the new races, Goblin also was very fun with like the starting experience and all that. It was like super, super funny, right? And yeah, those new races, I actually very welcomed them. I thought it was fun to be able to play as a Goblin Mage or Warlock suddenly, and maybe like for example, a Worgen, I think Worgen Rogue and Hunter, really, really cool. But yeah, I think it wasn't so bad. Just like, yeah, I mean, sure, there were like some things added that were not really appreciated by everyone, right? Some also didn't like the new races. I thought they were cool, but yeah.
Considered WoW's first bad expansion during its day, Cataclysm had so much to live up to, considering that Wrath of the Lich King was so beloved. It's not really a surprise that many people were disappointed, to be fair. Worgen were introduced to the game as well as Goblins, both really cool races, but
I think
Alliance,
they're cool too.
They've never been able to escape the furry jokes ever since. Unfortunately, Cataclysm felt very disconnected and random.
You're always going
from
to
a story
joke about
perspective.
something.
One second, you're miles underwater in Vashir, the next you're climbing Mount Hyjal's summit. It was kind of strange. What even was Deathwing's plan anyway? Break out a deep home, just light zones on fire randomly?
That was a bit
then
confusing.
Get killed by a magic talking green pickle with a golden dinner plate? I don't think anyone has a clue what the story of Cataclysm was. Mists of Pandaria. Fun. Here's the thing. Cataclysm, it wasn't too well received, and the player base, they were not in the best of moods. And when Mists of Pandaria was announced, I don't think anybody was really that hyped at first. However, surprisingly,
yeah, this is what I said the other day. Mists of Pandaria was probably one of the worst rated expansions on launch. But after some months, people actually changed their mind and they freaking started to love Mists of Pandaria. And exploration there is just so fun. Like, okay, then again, I'm like really interested in like Asian culture, especially like Chinese one, and like I love ancient China. Like sometimes if there's like a documentary somewhere, like on TV here in Germany, and it's like I sometimes like will really sit down for like an hour plus in front of my freaking TV screen and I will watch a documentary about ancient China. No, seriously, for me it's like I find the culture like in Asia very, very interesting and stuff. So for me, this was like cool to have this suddenly an MMO where you can like freaking explore. You have like freaking panda bears that know some kung fu and stuff, like Kung Fu Panda, right? I actually think, Mists of Pandaria is also one of my more favorite expansions.
I don't think anybody was really that hyped at first. However, surprisingly, Mists went on to become one of WoW's best expansions.
That's
Beautiful
true.
zones, immersive lore, return to
10 out
this
of 10 for
Horde
exploration.
versus Alliance conflict, Garrosh being a badass and doing absolutely nothing wrong. The vibe of this expansion was awesome. And talk about some iconic raids too. From Throne of Thunder to Siege of Orgrimmar itself, Blizzard really went overboard with the creativity and the amount of content in this expansion.
Yeah, that's
it's
a lot of
shame, though, that we
content.
never saw the return of scenarios. Remember those things? Those small dungeon-like stories we participated in here and there? Those were kind of cool. Warlords of Draenor. Fun. Not fun. I think that everybody here would agree that Warlords, it had an awesome vibe to it as an expansion.
But they ruined it. I'll tell you in a moment why.
Who doesn't love the idea, after all, of invading another planet, fighting against a tribalistic, bloodthirsty enemy, and then building your own fortress in order to combat your foes? I mean, it was cool. But the problem with Warlords was the fact that it was one of WoW's worst expansion launches, especially due to all the lag. Garrisons, they ended up being nowhere near as customizable and fun that people assumed that they would be. And the expansion suffered from a massive lack of content.
That is so freaking true. Like, I think when it comes to like garrisons, like what they ruined to me is they actually fixed the places where you can put buildings. There can be either a medium building or there can be a small building or there can be a large building, and you can't customize those buildings where you say, oh, I want a table to be there, I want a bed to be there. It was sort of like housing, but not really housing, because if you look at like all the MMOs that have housing in it, or at least most of them, you have so many like customization options. You can make, like, you can move sometimes even windows, you can move the doors, you can have them there or there, you can have no door at the entrance, you can add some furniture if you want to at this room, in this room. You have like zero customization options when it comes to like garrison. All you have is like spots where you can put either like small, medium or large buildings, and that's it basically. So it's kind of like there are like so many restrictions, and there are like those missions, sure, you can like, or have like work orders, right, to get like materials and stuff. But if you look at them now, they're no more relevant for the latest expansion. So they kind of like made garrisons just relevant, even though the concept is quite nice, for one expansion. The new expansion came, and now garrisons are almost useless. Like, nobody's going there anymore. Are you guys even like going back to your garrisons? Like, let me know in the comment section. I seldom go back to my garrisons because there's nothing I can do really. It's just pointless. It doesn't even feel like housing to me. So yeah, and about, well, I think they ruined Warlords of Draenor. I want to also point something out here. They actually cut out a lot of content. Warlords of Draenor was supposed to be like probably like 2 times the size it is now. They even like removed like a whole zone. There were those kind of plant people, like some sort of faction. You could probably even grant reputation for them with like some sort of island. And they freaking removed it. Like, they cut so much content. And when it comes to the lore, to all those orc clans and stuff, some were cut really short. Like, what is there about the Burning Blade? There's like so little. Like the Shadow Moon clan, they have like such a short lore version shown there. Like, they are like the Shadow Moon, they're way bigger and stuff, and with Ner'zhul and all that. Like, they could have been more fleshed out in my opinion. Like, you go to Shadow Moon Valley, have like some short story, then you are done, and that's all you learn about them. Even though in like books, for example, if you check novels, they're actually way bigger there even than in game. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the orc clans, they don't live up to the lore. Or the Laughing Skull. What are the Laughing Skull? They're just shown as like freaking maniacs that like love killing stuff. You don't learn much more. Same with like the Draenei. Like, yeah, there's like an alternate version of the Draenei that has like, they have established themselves, they have like issues, and I feel like some of those characters, they could have gotten like more story. Same with like their culture. Like, there could be like maybe more freaking rituals or certain, I don't know, beliefs that the Draenei have that are like shown to us, but they're not really shown there to us that much. And yeah, that they removed zones, that some quest lines were like cut short. Yeah, they could have done a way better job, in my opinion.
and the expansion suffered from a massive lack of content, only receiving one major content patch during its entire life cycle. What content we did get, however, it was good, in terms of dungeons and raids, but it's no surprise that so many people went to play on Nostalrius, this vanilla WoW private server, during this expansion's day in WoW's timeline.
Wow.
Legion. Fun. Warlords of Draenor
Legion
certainly
was
hurt
good.
World of Warcraft in terms of population and popularity, but Legion seemed to bring everybody back. It's a fan favorite expansion, and it's no wonder as to why once you see the sheer amount of creativity thrown into Legion, class and spec identities being expanded upon with the introduction of artifact weapons, quest lines, and class order halls, fan favorite characters like Illidan and Gul'dan returning to do battle against one another, this world-ending invasion theme persisting throughout the expansion, giving to this game a feeling of urgency as we fight to defend Azeroth from the Burning Legion, and also demon hunters introduced to the game. Not as cool as Death Knights, in my opinion, but these guys, they're so much fun to play nonetheless. Battle for Azeroth, not fun. BFA was
Horrible.
a series of blunders on Blizzard's part, some would say, leading to it being a very divisive expansion in the WoW player base. Either you thought this expansion was okay at best, or you just absolutely couldn't stand it. It was in BFA
I thought the
that
conflict
hatred for
between the Hot and Lines
Sylvanas
was
and
so
the
annoying
emphasis
here.
that Blizzard was putting on her began to grow. Night Elves lost their home tree of Teldrassil. Borealis and Zandalar, they were introduced as these new areas, but they felt a little lacking in some ways. The expansion always just felt like it was missing something. Island.
Yeah, I feel like what they could have done better with BFA, because like there's stuff with the old gods, right? But what they did instead, they focused so much about the conflict between the Alliance and the Horde. If this was not Battle for Azeroth, but something like, I don't know, like they could have renamed it like the Old Gods or something, for example, like World of Warcraft expansion, the Old Gods. It would be more about the old gods, with a little bit about like the issues, of course, with the Azerite and with the issue that there's like a sword now stuck in Azeroth. But like it's the main theme, the old gods or something, and you have to stop the old gods once and for all or something, like with Enzorf and all that. Like it would have been way cooler if they would have focused more on the old gods than the conflict between the Alliance and the Horde, because I thought this was kind of annoying. Like, we have this conflict all the time. We have PvP, we have this and that and stuff, but it should be something that's on the side, and I feel like the focus of an expansion should not be this sort of conflict, but it should be about like stuff happening, maybe like a common enemy or something like that. And even though there was some common enemy, it wasn't really pointed out as much throughout the storyline. It was mostly about their issues between the Horde and the Alliance, and I thought this was kind of annoying, to me at least.
But they felt a little lacking in some ways.
Yeah.
The expansion always just felt like it was missing something. Island expeditions were also a total disaster. People dreaded doing them. And Warfronts,
it felt like a
despite being
chore,
such an
right?
interesting idea, it just ended up being a big letdown. Some cool new allied races introduced to the game,
Amazing
though, in the
ones,
form of
yeah.
Koltirans, Zandalari trolls, and Mechanomes. So there was that. Classic World of Warcraft. Fun. You thought I wasn't going to include the re-releases of Classic WoW in this video? Despite
why is this
many
under
people
expansions
doubting
now?
as to whether or not Vanilla WoW would do well if it was re-released in the modern day, Classic was a huge success for Blizzard, bringing back many people to the game and making so many fall in love with the original.
You know what? I will make
2004
a
version
ranking
of WoW
after this
all
with
over
the
again.
expansions.
The only
I'll tell you which
downside
ones are
really
my
was the
favorite
fact
ones.
that because of the sheer amount of time that had passed since 2004, Classic WoW had been min-maxed to hell, meaning that people didn't really get to experience the wonder of discovery that we got to enjoy back all those years ago. Unless, of course, you just never watched any YouTube videos or looked up any guides, in which case, you probably really enjoyed the re-release. Classic TBC, not fun. Now, it isn't that Classic TBC was not enjoyable. I even said earlier in the video that Burning Crusade was great, but compared to Vanilla's re-release as Classic, TBC just didn't seem to generate as much buzz. Many people went
because the
back to
second
playing
time,
modern World of Warcraft, and then they proceeded to quit, and you'll see why.
Like the issue with like Classic TBC and why some people say it kind of like failed and wasn't as popular is, it's a re-release of something that a lot of players have already experienced. Like the issue with the WoW community is, and it is a good thing, but at the same time a bad thing, is that our community, and it also includes myself, is pretty old. Like WoW doesn't have a huge like boost of like new players. Like a lot of players that play WoW now, they were already playing 5, 6, 7 years ago WoW. It's not like, oh, Dragonflight, suddenly 20 or 30% of all the players that are online in WoW are brand new players. No, it's not that. Those are all players that are still playing WoW, that were playing WoW like 5, 6, 7 years ago. Even like before that, right? So we have like a very loyal, what is actually good, right? If you're like a loyal player to one game, right? We have a very well-aged, loyal WoW community. And we're not getting so many super new players. So if you make like a classic version of a previous expansion that was like several years ago, what do you get? You get a lot of players that already played this expansion some years ago to play it again. And the hype is no more there because you see something for the second time. If a new movie comes out and you're going to the cinema to watch a movie, and you watch it and you enjoy it, and then 1 month later, you see it's still in this movie thing, in the cinema. And you go there again 1 month later to watch the same movie. You're not going to have as much fun and as much excitement as you had the first time. This is like how I'm comparing WoW Classic with WoW. If you experience something and go through it the second time, it's never going to be as exciting as the first time. It's the same with movies. So yeah.
In a second, or they went to play other MMOs like Final Fantasy.
Oh, that's actually
time.
fun.
Classic
I love
TBC
FF14.
just didn't click as much as Vanilla Classic did. At least I don't think it did. But regardless though, the Classic TBC community, it stayed strong. Many got to enjoy the delights of Burning Crusade all over again, just like we did all those years ago. And even after all this time, I gotta say, fighting Illidan atop Black Temple, it was still awesome. Shadowlands, fun. Not fun. Even in the beta, people were concerned about
it was the worst expansion, actually.
Myself. Little did we know,
unfortunately,
however, that Shadowlands would go down as WoW's absolute worst expansion.
Yes,
there was
I agree,
so much
yeah.
emphasis put on Sylvanas. The lore made absolutely no sense. The main villain, nobody liked
and it
him.
ruined
Torghast
players'
got old
fantasy.
super fast. You will be really hard.
Torghast was freaking Chorghast. People hated it. They complained for such a long time. Blizzard didn't do anything after a very, very, very long time. They kind of like nerfed and changed Torghast after Eternity, right? And it was very, very, very annoying for such a long time. It's still annoying, like, don't get me wrong, but less annoying. And what I actually don't like about Shadowlands, it actually kills players' fantasy and imagination, because the Shadowlands is the afterlife of the fantasy world of World of Warcraft, right? And if you, like, this is the thing about, like, fantasy worlds. If you show how the afterlife looks like, and it's an afterlife where even, like, it is almost like the normal mortal realm, right? And if you freaking die in the afterlife, then for some reason you're completely erased from existence or something. At least that's how they're like kind of like explaining or showing it here, right? How you turn into some anima or something and you are gone. It's kind of weird because to me, like, if you show the afterlife in a fantasy world, as a player, you can no more imagine and guess what it would be like if your character, especially if you're like role-playing, right? How your character would end up, like where he would end up in or she. Like, your fantasy is gone. You can no more imagine how the afterlife could possibly be in this fantasy world. It killed a lot of player fantasy and imagination. And they also introduced it so poorly. It is kind of weird. Like, the lore makes no sense. You can be as a mortal in the afterlife, and in the afterlife it's kind of like on the mortal realm. And then for some reason, some cyborg kind of beings, they are behind the creation of Azeroth. And OMG, like, what is the jailer's backstory even? Like why does he have a hole in his chest? Was his heart broken by someone before, and someone freaking pulled out his heart and destroyed it, or what? I'm joking right now, but like, seriously, like, what is the freaking real true backstory of the jailer? Like, why is he so mad? And how did Sylvanas freaking meet the jailer? How did they team up? And there's like so much stuff that is a big question mark for a lot of players when they play through it and experience it. And yeah, with the Torghast and all that, like, it was very annoying. And then you have to get like legendaries, right? And then in the next expansion or next patch, no, not next expansion, next patch, your strongest class spec gets nerfed. Like one patch, you want to be a destruction warlock, so you get this legendary. And then suddenly they nerf something. Now affliction is way better. Then you want to go for affliction, but you need another legendary if you're a warlock main. And then you need to craft and grind for it again. And this and that. Like this was so annoying for me. Like seriously. I think this is for me the worst expansion.
You will be really
and the story is so not connected. There's
really
no red string to follow lore-wise and story-wise.
I'm sure there's a few people out there, they're going to be in the comment section of this video, but for most people, Shadowlands is the definitive worst expansion in World of Warcraft history. Classic Wrath of the Lich King. Fun. As mentioned before, Wrath of the
Same
Lich
with
King,
TBC, second time.
one of WoW's best expansions.
Can't have the same hype as vanilla.
So this
Wrath of the
was
Lich King.
classic experience that many people wanted to see brought back to life. Now, currently at the time of this video's release, Wrath of the Lich King is still going strong, but I will say that it is a little bit too early to say if this re-release of WoW will go down as positive or negative in the player base.
As positive, I'm sure.
However, from what we've gotten so far and the fact that the community is still strong, still healthy, I think it's safe to say that Wrath of the Lich King is fun and it's being enjoyed just like it was all those years ago. Dragonflight, fun. Shadowlands may have been a complete
it's in my top 5
disaster for Blizzard, but Dragonflight, at least so far, has been very enjoyable for most. Although nowhere near as epic as Wrath of the Lich King or as immersive as Legion, Dragonflight, it's filled with a ton of enjoyable activities for players to do each day upon logging in. It's my hope and many people's hope that Blizzard can continue to deliver strong results with this expansion, because it would be so cool to see retail make a massive comeback. It seems that Classic just seems to be leading the way these days when it comes to WoW, but we don't know. We don't really have the internal numbers. The one thing I'll say about Dragonflight though, evokers, man. Blizzard, you should have given us those big buff dragonkin looking guys.
Oh
to play
yeah,
instead,
I would love to
rather
look
than
like
these
that.
Skinny Argonian looking fellas, but
Argonian, oh yeah, like it is. Oh,
13 expansions, 8
he's
were
right.
fun and 5 were not fun. Do you agree with the list? Let us know in the comment section
Mostly
down below.
All right, so I will give you guys now my tier list, like which expansions I love the most. Okay, so at number 1, it's Wrath of the Lich King, my most favorite expansion. I enjoy the zones, the storyline is very interesting. There's finally a final fate for Arthurs. I've always been wondering that in Warcraft 3, like what will happen to Arthurs in the future. And I freaking love the Death Knight, and I had so much fun grinding one up. I thought this was so cool. And yeah, like story is very, very well written. It's nicely delivered. I think the raids are pretty fun too. Like some people are hating on the dungeons and raids. I actually enjoyed them a lot. And yeah, for number 2, I would say, yeah, Legion. I really like Legion. I think this is a very, very cool. And what I loved so much about Legion, and I got this kind of feeling actually while experiencing it. So for those of you that played Warcraft 3, you guys remember how like in old school Warcraft 3 there was like some demon threat and like everyone freaking united against the demons and you have to freaking fight against them in Warcraft 3 and stuff. Like it gave me this kind of nostalgic feeling again with Legion that I had from the Warcraft 3 experience in my younger days. And it was so cool. I think the Demon Hunter is very, very fun. It's one of my most favorite classes, and like I feel like those zones are really cool. From like the allied races there, especially the Nightborn, I actually really enjoyed unlocking them. I thought their questline with Zurama is one of the best questlines actually in WoW. It's really, really cool. So yeah, I would say second for me, Legion. Third, I would probably say TBC. Because TBC, I had the best, maybe one of the best early game experiences, like from the expansion zones when I entered the portal and I'm in the Outlands and all that. Like it was freaking so much fun. I had like good memories. I remember like during this time I was actually playing a lot of WoW. I was always at my friend's home, and back in the day I didn't have like my own account, so I would always hang out at my friend's crib. and we would play together, and it was so fun. TBC, I remember leveling there, going through all those quests, and how like we go from like the one dry wasteland kind of zone into some sort of swamp like big mushrooms area, Zangamarsh and all that. It was so freaking cool. I really liked TBC. So number 3. Number 4, I would say Mists of Pandaria. I have so much fun exploring there. I think it's also story-wise not as horrible as some other expansions in WoW. I thought those Kung Fu Pandas are kind of cool, like Kung Fu Panda. So yeah, I would say 4 there. And 5, I would say Cataclysm. And mostly because of Worgen Goblins and because of a rework of some older zones, so they feel fresh and new again if you have a second playthrough through them. So yeah, those are my top 5. What are your top 5? Let me know in the comment section. And if you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give this one a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing. And I will see you guys in the next video.